special blessing guys and prepare this meeting this evening. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Well, I'll call the Tuesday, April 13th meeting of the Planning Commission to order. We'll have a roll call, Mr. Pope.
Mr. Allen? Yeah. Mr. James here. Mr. Robinson? Here. Mr. Robinson?
Here.
Mr. Adams?
Here.
Ms. Barnes Rhodes?
Here.
Ms. Ogle?
Here.
Mr. Antor? Here. Ms. White?
Here.
Thank you. Are there any agenda items to be added, Mr. Pope?
There are no agenda items to be added. I would like to make a change to the agenda. We have 3 cases tonight. The first one we'll hear is going to be the area Powell Ministries special use permit case. I think there are a couple of people here for that. I would like to go into public hearing, hear the staff report, any comments, go out of public hearing and take action on that so the people that are here for that case can go and leave. Then we can go back into public hearing for the other 2 cases.
Okay, I don't see a problem with that. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as printed then?
Make a motion.
We have a motion, how about a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. I think that was unanimous. The minutes from last in February, you have a copy of those. Hope you've had time to look at them. Does anyone see any issues that we should change or any correction? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve the February minutes as printed.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Bobby. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second. Is there further discussion? If not, everybody say aye. This is ready to vote.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. We need to get a motion to go into public hearing. First of all, for the SP 1-21, very powerful ministry. Can I get a motion to go in public hearing?
I'll make a motion.
Have a motion to the second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The name public hearing to hear SP 1-21, very powerful.
All right, before I give a staff report, I want to apologize in advance. I've been dealing with some respiratory issues, so I'm probably getting coughing and wheezing and hacking up here, so just bear with me. The case tonight is SP 121, the applicant is Jerry Powell Ministries. The property that is the subject of the zoning request is located on Skippers Road, adjacent to Brookridge Apartments. The property is on R2D multifamily and has a vacated industrial building located upon it. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to establish an adult agricultural center. When we look at the zoning ordinance, we find that the R2D multiple family district is established to provide appropriate location for housing consistent primarily of rental apartments and other dwelling types preferring higher densities. This district is intended to be established only in locations where water and sewer are available. In addition, it is anticipated that areas developed at this density will require additional public, semi-public, and private uses to support and enhance the neighborhood. The primary intent of the R2 district is to promote the establishment within the county of a variety of higher density housing styles designed primarily for rental at affordable prices. When we look at Article 4, Table 4.1 of the zoning ordinance, the permitted use statement, it indicates that an adult outreach center is a use and is allowed within the R2 zoning district with the issuance of a special use permit. In granting any such special use permit, the Board of Supervisors may impose any such conditions in connection therewith as will assure that it will conform to the requirements contained herein within the zoning ordinance will continue to do so. A special use permit shall not be issued by the board unless the board finds that the proposed use would not be detrimental to the community. The proposed use is in conformity with the comp plan and policies. Excuse me. All right, when we turn to the comprehensive plan, I'm not gonna read everything in the comprehensive plan.
Land.
R2,
Land.
yes,
I have a home purchase, I gotta run up with that.
okay. When we look at the comp plan citations, if we look at the goals and objectives under land use, general category, we find that it encourages new development that complements surrounding uses. It wants us to concentrate development in appropriate locations by encouraging more efficient site design and incorporating proper buffers between different uses. It also encourages the in-field development of different housing types and densities. When we look at housing and community development sections, promote again compatible in-field development into existing neighborhood, encouraging the diversity of housing types. When we look at the planning issues and strategies under housing issues, the comp plan promotes a variety of safe, sanitary, and affordable types of housing for county residents, all groups. It states that we shall work with organizations to identify new programs and funding sources, particularly at state level, which may be utilized to meet the housing needs of the disadvantaged. When we look at the land use plan, you should have a copy of the future land use map. It depicts general land use concepts for Greensville County. The purpose of this plan is to recommend the orderly development of the county. The plan outlines the recommended development patterns for the county over the next 20 years. You'll see on that map that this property is located in a medium density residential area, which allows greater density and variation of housing types. When we look at the character of the properties in the area surrounding the subject property, the property consists of properties that are zoned M1 industrial, B2 business, and R2B multifamily. We have apartments, 2 single-family dwellings, a welding shop, vacant industrial building, and an automotive garage nearby. The property is accessed by private entrance, which begins at US Route 301 and terminates on the property. The property is serviced by both public water and public sewer. Excuse me. When we analyze the applicant's request, like I said, we'll give you a little bit of history. The property that was subject to the zoning request was zoned M1 business and the M1 industrial in the early 1980s, when the county developed its first zoning ordinance to establish specific zoning districts. At the time, the subject property was home to Miller Homes and later Craft District, both who utilized the property for industrial purposes. Craft District closed the stores in the early 1990s, and the property sat vacant since that time. In recent years, Brookridge Apartments was constructed, which changed the character of the area somewhat. And in January of 2020, of this year, the subject property was rezoned from M1 to R2B multifamily residential. When you look at the urban service area map that's found in the land use plan, this property is right on the border of a residential and commercial hub on that urban service area map. Residential land uses within this urban service district divisions include full range of low to medium density residential developments. Low density in this area is single family dwellings with 2 to 3 lots per acre. Medium density is 8 to 10 units per acre. Staff is of the opinion that it would be appropriate to approve a special use permit for an adult beach center located upon the property for several reasons. First reason, the subject property is located in this urban service area in which low density and medium density development is expected. It's served by public water and sewer, public highway system. The applicant will have to work with VDOT concerning some entrance requirements VDOT has, and You'll have to obtain the land use permit for an entrance that meets VDOT's entrance standards off of 301. I attached a copy of VDOT's letter that they submitted, and provided the applicant with their phone number, so you can get in touch with them to provide them additional information concerning the entrance. The second reason, while the applicant only wishes to provide temporary transitional type housing, approval of the applicant's request will provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing in a suitable environment for citizens regardless of race, gender, age, or income. Number three, approval of the applicant's request promotes compatible infield development. Number four, in the planning and issues and strategy section of the comp plan, it's recommended county work with organizations to identify new programs and funding sources which may be utilized to meet the needs of the housing disadvantaged. Because of the under reasons, staff recommends approval of the request with the conditions noted below. There are 15 conditions. I've seen everybody's read all the conditions in the report, so I won't go through all of the conditions. These conditions were put in there to protect surrounding properties from any nuisances that might be created by the development of this site. So tonight, there's three things the planning commission can choose to do. The first would be to recommend approval of the application with stated or amended conditions if y'all feel we need to amend any conditions. Recommend denial of the application or defer the application to a later date. I apologize, I struggled trying to get through that.
Thank you, Mr. Pope. See, the applicant, I thought I saw the applicant get somewhere. Mr. Knight, you close mine. Do you want to speak to this process? I think. State your name, Mr. Powell, for the record.
Yes, sir. My name is Jeremy Powell. I'm a resident of Greensville County. As I stand here today, my wife, Virginia Powell, as we stand here, to ask you to help me help others. The fact that I've been doing jail ministry for 15 years, and I have a home, a rental house that I help bring when guys come out to help them in my own home. But in the vision, I believe the Lord called me to do greater works with me. And this is a ministry. And those guys are paid, when they come out, they're paid their time. My job, our job is to help them get a hold of society, to be the fathers, the children, the husband, the wives, and taxpayer citizens, and to be all what the Lord called them to do. I believe the Lord called me to do that. I've been working with this vision for a long time now. And look at this building for years. And I want the opportunity to go forward with this building to improve, like I said, would be housing, temporarily, would be food and training, all those things to prepare those young men for jobs. And also to be out of God's heart. You know, and that's a passion for me. I've been a citizen of this community for all my life. You know, and that's my passion. So I'm asking you to help me fulfill this vision for the important vision, to help me help those young men, and not only young men, this outreach service for our community also. Feeding people, I want to be able to feed people, I want to have a nighttime, feed people at nighttime and homeless and so forth like that. So So, I'm asking you to help me do this, which I've been struggling with this for years. And I just believe in the midst of it all, that show my love and desire for these men and these homeless people. And I think this is the place forward, and I've been, like I said, I'm already moved forward with it. But I had to come back and see for me, you know, so. I'm asking you to, help me to help others, complying with me to go forward with this. Because I put my time in, and the feeling would be, 24 hours, there would be somebody there, you know, I pretty much got the brain together, pretty much, you know. And I got a lot of support from the community already, you know, so the government is waiting for the, get this permit, so I can get rolling, pretty much. So, no issues.
Your name, ma'am? Your name?
Virginia.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just to add a little more to what my husband just said, he pretty much said it all. But we do understand how safety is first for the community. So each applicant will be screened to make sure that they are right for our program, because safety is first. That's pretty much all I want.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners or Ms. Powell?
Mr. Powell, you will be on site managing this facility personally?
Yes, pretty much, I have, me and my staff, yes, sir.
Can you explain, like, what your staff will, because that's been some of the questions that I've heard. Maybe just explain how you'll manage your staff, or just a little bit about that.
Okay, first of all, this is a Christian-based program, pretty much. As you see here, let me read you my mission. Then I can go down what I'll be doing, providing admission programs, transition housing, food pantry, clothes, closet, education services, training center, Christian education. Okay, Father being ran, let me see, Father being ran is to be able to, as far as house them for 6 months. I would be able to having classes, we'll be having classes there, for them, you know, fathers, learning, different things, we're having also, with the class, alcohol class.
Substance abuse classes.
Substance abuse classes, so forth. It would be it would be laid up to 5 o'clock. After 5 o'clock, pretty much, they'll be going in, for the night. I'm still working on things with that, and I'm trying to be able to, get my advice. I have staff pretty much somewhat to help, so we'll mix it. Like I said, it's gonna be open 24 hours, but it will be somebody there at all times. You know. Like I say, I pretty much know how to do this pretty much. I'm just waiting for, you know, pretty much. I'm at a standstill right now pretty much, but like I say, they need to train these guys, it'll be ran by different ones doing certain things, having Bible study, training activities, hands-on activities, and whatnot. Pretty much, and I won't start off on at least for 5 men. That's what.
As far as the security goes, we will have different people taking different shifts to make sure that the facility is always manned with someone there to make sure that, you know, everything is going smoothly. So it will be manned 24/7.
And also the sheriff department would be working with also pretty much get needed. You know.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? All right, thank you, Mr. Powell. Is anyone in the audience want to speak for it or opposed to it?
My name is Ron Ripley. We are the owners of Brookridge Apartments. My brother Scott is here, and husband of ours, Andy People. We built and developed the properties about 20 years ago.
Can you pull your microphone up a little bit? You're rather tall and you have a hard time.
Better?
That's better.
Okay. We built these properties about 20 years ago and have only managed ever since. The property is it's made up of families, and there are a lot of children in this property. And when you rezone the property, notice I think was sent to the lender, but I never received notice of the rezoning. The project down here, certainly wouldn't have closed the multi-family zoning, but the intended use is concerning. And I would like to have had a little more definition about what exactly this application is. I think the use Mr. Bell described is a very honorable mission, and I think it's a wonderful thing to take on. But I have to be concerned about the people that live in the property. I probably have 100 children that live in this property. I need to be concerned with anything that might influence them, cause them a problem. And so if you're going to grant this special use permit, then I think you need to apply some pretty good compatibility buffers that would help the two reside together. Don't know what your intention is tonight, but I don't think it's a compatible use particularly. But if you are going to do this, then I think you need some fencing and buffering between them. I think the buffering needs to include fencing and landscaping. I wrote a memo to Mr. Pogue. I think you might have a copy of it. If I get a copy of that, and I outlined about 9 different things in there. One of which was install a solid 6-foot fence. I like for it back off 10 feet off the property line, like Greenland cypress or some indigenous plant that grows buffers between the fence and the property line. I'd like to see the entrance. Anything with this adapted, I'm not really sure what's going to be done to the buildings. That's what's not clear. And to diverge from my memo, the applicant never contacted us. I would have thought that's something the applicant would wanted to have done. Talk to us about what he had planned, how can we mitigate these things, so that I'm not standing here today talking to you about that and asking you to consider these things. Perhaps it could work this out. The application is just not real clear, in my opinion. I don't know how many units are going to be in there. I don't know what he's going to do to the building. He's going to put new landscaping in, make it look better. Just a lot of there's some things that I think ought to be addressed. Maybe you need to defer it, have him come back and give you a little more specifics, but I would like to see that. The other things that I put in here are prepared. I don't want really, I know that you're not going to want anybody watering on the property. I just want to make sure there's no watering on the property, other than what his activities are. If you approve it, any activities, I would like for him to have them north of his buildings. So that activity, he's got 8 acres of land, he doesn't need to have them between the apartments and the buildings. It could be north of the building, be easy to do. Lighting, I think, is addressed. I would like to see lighting definitely pointed away from the apartments and not up to the apartment windows. So the other thing, if we talked about having somebody there 24 hours a day. I just want to make sure that's really in fact the case. And again, how many units are we going to approve? Are you approving 6 units, 12 units? And hopefully you will put a limit on that so that it doesn't turn into a whole bunch of housing units there. So that's really moving in a number, and I'd like to have a number. We would appreciate you to address that and consider that. And then the last thing that I put in here is that this special use permit to be administratively approved each year. And that would keep pressure on the applicant, and also would allow us to tell you if we have problems, what they are, try to resolve them. So those are pretty much my concerns. You know, again, it's not clear if this kitchen is proposed, and looks like it's a kitchen proposed. Is that going to be open to people from the outside, or is that just to serve people inside that building? Or is it going to be people hanging out to eat every night that's not living there? So to me, there's just a lot of open things here. I really think you need to kind of dig into this, make sure you create something, if you're going to approve it, that's compatible with the 124 apartments that's sitting next door, 100 children, families that are in there. So that's why I'm here. Yeah.
So that's good. Thank you, Mr. Bickley. Any more questions from the commission from Mr. Bickley?
I would say this, you say use permit from year to year. And I look at this, you issue somebody a permit, it would be unthinkable to think somebody would come for us every year for a permit. But also, as long as you have an investment there, they're gonna have an investment there too. So if you look at it, if we grant a permit, it will be granted, and not, I would never say from year to year. And also, it's gonna work too, if you got 100 kids there, I would think Mr. Potter would have more concern about your kid doing something to him versus him doing something to you. So that has to be something taken into consideration too. If you look at all the other demands here that you want to make. Okay, so your apartments are sitting there. I understand your apartments are sitting right there too. And I guess Mr. Potter is still here. I don't know whether he won't even address anything he's got to say.
Well, my recommendation is administrative approval for annually, planning director. He would have the authority to, if there is a problem, bring it in and we discuss it. Now, I wouldn't suggest he come back here every year. That wouldn't make sense. I don't think the public served on that at all. I think that is served by the planning director saying, you're out of whack here, we need to do this or that. Bring it back for me based on whatever you approve. Children are children, and I'm concerned just the other way, and I understand what you said. I'm more concerned for the children, than I am for the people who might move in there.
I would think this is, with his mentioning what he's doing, he'll be more helpful to those kids at home. That's my position.
Okay.
He'll be more helpful at home.
Thank you.
Any more comments from the commission members? Thank you, Mr. Bickley.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak either in favor or opposed to this project?
I do have a general question, maybe for Lynn and your staff report. Is there a limit of number of sleeping or living units? I heard Mr. Thomas, I think, say 6, I think maybe.
Yeah,
Is there,
The limits will be decided when they do the engineering plans and stuff based on the occupancy of the building. This is going to be a multi-use occupancy, as you're well aware, because you're an engineer. And only a portion of the building will be used for residential apartments. So I don't imagine there'll be very many rental units at all with the other spaces he wants to have within the building there. He will have to go through not just a site plan process, he's got to have engineers, design drawings for everything. Then once drawings are approved by the building official, he'll have to come back, get the building permits and everything, and make structural alterations. But I would imagine Jerry might be able to answer this. I don't think he would be able to get, but probably 6 at the most, if that many.
Yeah, I was just
Based on the
curious.
size of the building, it needs to be a multi-use facility.
So we don't have anything listed now in the
The
conditions.
exact page is a hand drawn. Not a grand, shows the legal force, but it's not, I don't know, in relation to the building, that big as that is. It's not the scale of it.
Yeah, I was just curious if we had anything in here as far as conditions. That's kind of what I was asking.
Okay. Any conditions y'all wish to impose, we can certainly discuss and amend the staff report to include those conditions.
Well, just as a comment, I mean, I can understand Mr. Ripley's concern about the fence, and then the road is a gravel road. That's gonna get.
That's where he's got to be, if you look at condition number 3, he's got to go through the land use permit process with the VDOT to approve the entrance, not just the location, but the pipe entrance that will be.
That's just the entrance.
That's just the entrance, yeah, we can have conditions concerning from state right away, the entrance state right away to the facility.
Of course, two here was the cypress trees, and that could be, I'm not sure how expensive cypress trees are, but I'm sure they're not cheap. It might be more than is doable, I don't know. Any more questions from anyone? Okay, as we previously discussed, I'd like to go back into regular session to have a decision on Mr. Powell, SB-1-20. If you're ready to do that, I'd like to move back to regular session temporarily. Have a motion on the floor to do that. Have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? If not, all in favor of going back to regular session just for the Powell minutes to say aye. All opposed? The motion is carried. We can have a motion, or we have more discussion on this SP-1-21, Jerry Powell minutes. I understand I gotta have you back. Okay, you see on the back, we have 3 options. One to recommend approval, one to deny, and one to defer. I'm ready for a motion from someone to do one of the 3.
Then I will abstain from this. I'll do probably help Mr. Powell through the process for his site plan and building plans. I won't vote.
All right, so we have 1 abstention already. All right, does anybody else care to make a motion? If not, I guess it is back to the lack of a motion.
I say approve.
I'm sorry,
Approve,
are you making a motion to approve
yes.
with the conditions that are stated in Mr. Pope's report?
Yeah.
All right. Is there a second to that?
I second.
All right, I have a motion on the floor, and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All said Mr. Robinson, Jim Robinson, all in favor of approving this project, SP-1, Jerry Powell Ministries, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, we have 1 opposed. All right, the motion is passed. We must notify Mr. Powell, I'm not sure he's still here. This will be recommended to the board of supervisors for approval with the conditions. I think there's 15 conditions on here, Mr. Pope.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion then to go back into public hearing to SPA-1-21.
So moved.
Thank you. Have a second for that?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of going back into public hearing for SZTA -1-21. Say aye. All right, the motion approved. Now, in a motion of transparency, I'm gonna recuse myself on these two items, turn the gavel over to Mr. Jeff Robinson, in case that later on I'll have some kind of conflict. All right?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I think you might want to go over the protocol for public comments. I have a feeling we have right many speakers here tonight.
What does that have?
The protocol,
Okay, yeah, I'll do that before I leave. Did anybody get a copy of this other than
not the protocol, no, sir.
as people came in, they didn't get it?
No, sir.
All right. For public comments tonight, each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the planning commission. The limit will be straight and forward. Each speaker will be told when 2 of the 3 minutes have elapsed. Each speaker will be told when his or her 3 minutes have elapsed. Each speaker will be permitted to address the planning commission only once. A 3-minute opportunity to speak cannot be transferred from one speaker to another. Speakers should face the planning commission and address their comments to the planning commission and not to others who are present at the meeting. Speakers should not turn to face and address members in the audience. The planning commission is conducting its public comment session to receive comments from interested parties, so the planning commission will not respond to questions during the public comment session. And the planning commission will not engage in a dialogue with speakers. The planning commission decisions are based on the land use principles, so speakers are encouraged to make comments relevant to the land use issue. Comments concerning the principles governing the planning commission decision will be provided. The planning commission asks that everyone be respectful to others who are here. The planning commission will have the right to ask questions of the applicant during the planning commission's deliberation. We don't have any applicants tonight.
No, sir.
Is it county?
It's the county's case. Yes,
County,
sir.
okay. All right. Mr. Roberts.
All right, so are we in regular session now?
Yes, you're back in, no, you're talking,
That's public
Oh,
session.
so we're in public hearing.
you're public here.
All right, so we're good to go.
We'll go over my staff report.
Okay.
In the December 20th meeting of the Greensville County Board of Supervisors, the board tasked the staff to study solar issues and to prepare a report. The board was concerned about the rapid pace at which solar development was occurring throughout the county. 5 projects have already been approved. They include Pumpkin Seed, Greensville Solar, Saddle Solar, Family Creek Solar, and Jared Solar. County staff has also been contacted by numerous other developers about potential projects. The board was also concerned about the density of the project in several areas, the long-term impacts of solar, as well as the fact that developers were acquiring land that was better suited for residential and commercial development. Many of these prospective projects were located within the urban service area that's identified in the county's company. It was the consensus of the board that the county needed to slow down development of solar projects at least until some of the approved projects have been completed. So at the request of the board of supervisors, staff generated a solar report, which we have a copy of. I believe it's 32, 34 pages long. As a result of that solar report, staff offered several options when it comes to the zoning ordinance and the comp plan. So these next case kind of goes hand in hand. One's the zoning ordinance and one's the comp plan. So a lot of the same information. So as a result of the report, staff offered several options to the board. These options include you can make recommended amendments to the zoning ordinance. You can recommend removing everything related to utility scale solar from the zoning ordinance, and you can do nothing. You can recommend that no changes be made by the current zoning ordinance. So if you look at the first option, I have made some recommended changes to the ordinance to consider. So you have a copy of Article 24, and everything you read are changes. And what these changes are These are the metrics that were previously placed in the comp plan that dealt with the distance, between, some of our, hub districts, the distance between projects, the proximity to the existing power line infrastructure. That's what we originally put in the comp plan, and now we can move those to zoning orders when they become law, not just merely suggestions. So if you look at the items in red, we will be adding, well, if you look at 24.3 first, under zoning districts, utility scale solar projects, 5 megawatts or less are not allowed in any district, Frederick County. Utility scale solar projects greater than 5 megawatts may be permitted by special use permit in one district. The total size shall be less than 1,000 acres with no more than 75% PV coverage. Utility scale solar projects must locate within 1 mile of existing transmission infrastructure, and utility scale projects must locate a minimum. I was 3 to 5 miles of discussion.
We lost your mic, man. Just again.
There we go. Like I said, I just threw 5 miles. In the comp plan, we had a minimum of 1.5 miles between projects. I tried to develop a map that I included in your staff report here, and we'll give it to you today, that showed the effect of a 2.5 mile radius or 5 mile radius. Those dimensions aren't exact, but it gives you a representation of areas that are located along the existing power line infrastructure that could be developed with a 2.5 mile distance between projects and a 5 mile distance between projects.
So Lynn, you prepared this?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I was wondering where this came from.
Also, in section 24.3, applications and procedures, there's always been discrepancies in the size of a project. How many acres does the project consist of? So if you look at 24.4C, item number 6, I just added the language that the narrative must identify total parcel acreage, total project acreage, including buffer areas and wetlands, and the total acres that have PV coverage just to, so all applications will be consistent when they come in. They were some recommended changes that you can discuss tonight. Other options, like I said, were to remove utility scale solar as a permitted use from table 4.1 of the zoning ordinance, or you could recommend that you make other changes to the zoning ordinance pertaining to utility scale solar development. I'll be glad to entertain, answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, why don't you mention at this point, next week at our joint meeting Wednesday night for the comp plan?
Yes, next Wednesday, we have our next scheduled, work session with the board and the planning commission. And I think Tree, would you she handed out your packets. One of the chapters we're discussing next week will be the environmental chapter. And, there's a lot of information in that chapter, which I think might affect your recommendations as far as solar is concerned. I know y'all haven't had a chance to read it. You just got it as quick as you could. But that is coming up next week that we'll be discussing.
Like what type of environmental issues are you?
I didn't bring a copy. It's talking about, the possibility of doing what they call a water source protection plan for the Nile, which is the county's source of water. To where you have like an overlay district, to where you limit certain types of development, so you don't have to worry about contaminating, the watershed. There's forestry issues. I haven't been through the whole thing yet because I just got this on our agenda for, Wednesday night.
So this would stop that.
This is the normal process for going through the comp plan.
Right, so these were recommendations by the Berkeley group.
Yes.
So are we saying that tonight we are going to, obviously, it's a public hearing, so we're gonna listen, to everyone tonight, and then at the end of the night, take that into consideration with what we discuss next week, and then work on this? Is that our objective for tonight?
Yes, well, like I said, we have three choices. The concern that was expressed to me by the board at the January 21st meeting was the rapid pace of solar. If we don't make any changes, if we get 10 solar applications tomorrow, we have to run through the process. If we, or y'all want to take a break and let's see how some of these projects that haven't been completed yet turn out, you might want to remove as a use of land right now, revisit it, after some of these projects are complete. That's why we're bringing it here tonight, so let's discuss.
Well, what are we concerned about? I mean, this addresses, the markup that you gave us addresses everything from small scale all the way up to utility scale. So the board of supervisors feels as if the entire plan needs to be revisited, or if it's just they are concerned about these small 3 to 5 megawatt projects.
I think they're concerned about the overall density that we're headed to with solar development.
Meaning the total number, not small, not large. They're lumping a 3 megawatt project as the same as a 100 megawatt project.
The small, less than 5 megawatt utility projects don't have to go on a distribution line. They can go on a 3-phase line to where county. And some of the applicants, they're not applicants yet, but some of the developers are coming in with projects. So I've got 4 right next to Washington Park and business districts, industrial districts, supplanted neighborhoods. They're coming in wanting to develop this future residential and commercial type areas. So I think that's the concern with the small scale projects. The concern with the large utility scale projects is just, total density we will have throughout the county. Get more applications.
Well, when I look at it, and what I find confusing from the 2013 to the 2018 plan, we used the terminology 20 megawatts. We used it everything above or everything below 20 megawatt. Then, when we revisited this in 2019, Berkeley Group suggested that we use the terminology small scale, medium scale, and utility scale. I think we were led to believe that small scale meant rooftop solar. So it meant anything under 1 megawatt, but it did not specifically say 1 megawatt. It just listed it as small scale for a particular structure. And that's allowed by right in every zoning district. Then medium scale was listed, that it was allowed in our commercial and industrial zones by right, again, for a specific structure, meaning a business and industrial park could put up a facility But medium scale is not defined in terms of how many megawatts. It's just defined by right, and that it would support that structure, that facility. Then we gave it the ability to have utility scale solar. We did not find megawatt, but we just said utility scale solar is allowed in an agricultural district with an SUP. So what I find confusing is that now throughout the county, 3 to 4 megawatt projects, because Dominion issued an RFP for 3 to 4 megawatt projects. So we are, I guess that's what you're being inundated with, is that solar developers want to put in 3 to 4 megawatt projects. So by our definition, they are allowed only in agricultural zone, only with the issuance of an SUP. Now, again, I believe that there's a difference in utility scale solar, meaning utility scale solar is a grid transmission on a transmission line, on a 230 kV line or a 500 kV line, whereas these small 3 to 4 megawatt projects are going to go on a distribution line and can be pretty much anywhere in the county, as long as it's in an A1 zone. So it seems as if we have already addressed anything that could happen. So that's why I'm trying to figure out what the intent is. Because we only allow 3 to 4 megawatt, and that's the concern. That's kind of what I thought the concern was by the board of supervisors. They're only allowed in agricultural zones. They're only allowed with an SUP, correct? Our problem is that I think some people, if you talk to solar developers, some of them say, well, a utility scale solar project is anything above 20 megawatts because it's going to go on a big transmission line. They don't consider a 3 to 4 megawatt project utility scale. However, the definition of utility scale could be 1 megawatt or more. But we don't allow 3 to 4 megawatt projects in a residential area. They're only allowed in a agricultural district. Again, in my mind, where this gets a little bit confusing is because we used that terminology, medium scale, but it only produces enough energy for the structure that it is attached to. I do see some benefit in us cleaning that language up, so that that's not confusing. But I don't see the need to change anything else.
In Article 23 of the zoning ordinance under definitions, utility scale is defined as any project greater than 1 megawatt.
Right. And so, if we wanted to, again, I think when we were talking about in the zoning ordinance where we have the paragraph where it talks about medium scale solar, if we wanted to clean that up and just, again, it can't produce any more megawatt than what the structure needs. Make sure that it says that. I think it kind of says something to that effect. But, and then then we define that utility scale solar is 1 megawatt. So therefore I was confused why then you would then want to put a restriction in there that was under 5 megawatt.
And then bring the list of definitions with in Article 23, only brought Article 24. But these changes won't affect projects that are not utility scale. If DOC wanted to put something power their facility in the schools, that won't affect, they're not utility scale projects.
Exactly right, they're not utility scale projects, right? Because they're going to, it's gonna be on site, it's producing enough kilowatts to support that structure, no more no less. I've seen language recently, when I have researched some of this stuff that says that really, 3 to 4 megawatts is considered, cooperative scale. Because that's basically what it's being used for, it's being used, by your local electric cooperative, if there is one in your area, which most areas have one. And so, maybe that's something that we can look at or talk about again in relation to these small projects. Maybe we should hear, I didn't intend to monopolize the whole meeting, but maybe we need to listen to the public comments now, if you like.
Lynn, you ready to go back into public session, listen, hear any comments?
We're still in it, that's why I said I got a little long-winded, sorry. Sorry.
Well, do you have anybody in the audience who wants to speak towards the ZPA -1-21?
Good evening.
State your name, please, if you would.
Sure, my name is Rob Probst. I'm a solar project manager with the Urban Grid, a Virginia-based solar developer with over 10 sites in various stages of development in the Commonwealth. We at Urban Grid recognize the challenges of balancing new technologies, uses, and growth with the concerns of the citizens. And I'm grateful to be able to speak with you this evening to help solve some of these problems together. We've been exploring and performing due diligence on a utility scale solar project in the northwest corner of Greensville County, which we refer to as Monarch Solar, since filing our interconnection application with PJM in July 2018. In my comments tonight, I'd like to share some practical concerns and realistic unintended consequences of the proposed amendments as drafted. Urban Grid supports policies that encourage utility-scale solar projects in remote, agricultural, and managed forest areas, where there are few adjacent residences and good natural buffers. We believe the existing comprehensive plan promotes a policy of clustering solar projects to reduce the impacts of areas of the county where there are residences. Urban Grid utilized these same principles to guide our selection of the site for Monarch Solar. It's important to recognize that compared to the revenue the county receives from the agricultural managed forest areas, the land underlying a solar project is often 8 to 10 times greater, which increases the property tax paid. In addition, the solar equipment generates additional tax revenue under the county's recently adopted revenue share ordinance. Folks often think that the land utilized for a solar project would be lost forever. While the use of the land is long-term, it is in fact a temporary use. Given the low impact of a solar facility, when a solar facility is removed at the end of its useful life, the land can be returned to the previous use if that is what is desired. I can't think of another commercial development use where this is true. Now, some of the challenges and unintended consequences of the proposed amendments that you guys are considering tonight. The 5-mile distance between solar projects. Such a rule would create sprawl, which differs from the clustering policy adopted by the county in the comprehensive plan. And if there's one existing utility scale solar facility in a remote area, then this requirement would push the other utility scale project out of that remote area towards rural residential areas. The 1,000 acre cap on total acreage for all projects. This hurts the county from a revenue and planning perspective. Is my time? Okay. This policy has the unintended consequence of underutilizing large contiguous tracts of land that are typically used for managed timber operations, where the tax revenue to the county is less than if it were used for solar. Solar use preserves large farm and forest tracts and parcels that can be repurposed to offer agricultural forest uses after the project is decommissioned. The amendment to include a 1 mile minimum to transmission lines. This one, I'm not really clear on whether a portion of the project has to be within 1 mile or the whole project has to be located within a mile from the transmission line. If it's the whole project,
Sorry, that's 40 minutes.
I'm sorry,
It's 40 minutes.
okay, I'll add my comments and I'll share them with Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dave Lipscomb, and I'm with Mecklenburg Electric Cooperative. And I'd like to ask that, as commissioners, you consider keeping or adding to your plan a cooperative solar definition that would allow a 1 to 5 megawatt opportunity there. One of the solutions that the cooperative is using, and you guys all know, we all are seeking to become more environmentally friendly. We want to be energy responsible. And that 1 to 5 megawatt niche is important to some of the property or projects that the cooperative is working on at this time. In that size range, we can actually put a solar facility just very near a substation, and the power would be delivered to homes that are attached to that substation, never having to go back out onto the grid. So there would be no need to import or export energy. It would all be generated and consumed locally. And you know, that's a big thing when you consider not having to add infrastructure, whether that infrastructure would be a new transmission line, or whether that would be, expanding a right of way to put in a larger line. You can utilize the existing distribution line that is serving that community as well as the substation. So we would ask that you all consider a definition of cooperative scale solar from 1 to 5 megawatts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Laura Wilson. I'm with Dominion Energy. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all this evening. As you know, Dominion Energy is about to build out the largest solar energy portfolio in the nation here in the Commonwealth. This comes partly from the passage of the Virginia Clean Economy Act. But even before we became the implementers of the Virginia Clean Economy Act, Dominion had announced a commitment to achieve a net zero carbon goal by 2050. We did this because we think it is in the best interest of our ratepayers, our stockholders, our employees, the communities where we work and live, and the entire Commonwealth. Solar energy is now one of the least cost energy solutions available, and it's the right thing to do for the environment. So quickly, I'll go through what we think solar development can do for Greensville County. As we've heard from others, tax revenue, your revenue share gives you a guaranteed amount of tax revenue per year. And there's an escalation clause that's now recently been passed in legislation. There's the opportunity to sign a siting agreement, which could bring money or property for important capital projects in Greensville County, including anything on your capital improvements plan, funds for deployment of broadband. There's local economic activity from the solar projects. We involve a variety of trades and services, many of which can be sourced from the local community. There's ongoing landscaping, there's fence installation, engineering, construction, large number of construction jobs during the construction. Utility scale solar, unlike other forms of development, also offers the benefit of requiring less services. Our solar panels don't have children to send to school. I mentioned before the assured revenue. This year, more than ever, we saw that with COVID and the economic downturn, the future is never known. In times of economic uncertainty, the utility scale solar facility would provide dependable, constant, low-risk source of tax revenue. And then, of course, solar energy replaces the use of fossil fuels, such as coal and natural gas. And that has significant health and environmental benefits for us all. The two amendments proposed are of concern. The less than 1,000 acres for a facility, and also the fact that the facilities need to be more than 5 miles apart. The transmission lines of these facilities, these large utility scale facilities need to interconnect with already have a limited capacity. So there's inherently a limit of utility scale projects that can be connected to the grid. Many projects need to exceed 1,000 acres to provide the setbacks and buffers and which make it a visually appealing neighborhood while still being economically feasible. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Corey Hughes. I'm with Dominion Woodlands LLC. We're a large timberland owner that has a significant ownership in Greensville County. I'll note that our ownership is well away from Emporia and other more populated parts of the county. I'm here this evening to speak against the proposed amendment to the county solar ordinance. And the reasons for this are fairly straightforward. Right now, and this was kind of discussed by the previous two speakers, but right now our ownership is taxed at the forest use rate, which as was described as fairly low. We are considering the development of a utility scale solar project, which would change the use of the land to solar and dramatically increase the tax revenues that would accrue to the county. And just kind of as a practical example of some of the concerns that were just discussed, the changes that are proposed in the amendment could potentially jeopardize the project we're looking at, which could have the effect of removing the change in tax rates there. I think that would be fairly concerning. The final consideration that I'd like to make is just that if you think about an industrial timberland management, it's a fairly intensive land use already. For an ownership of the size that we have, there's constant and continuous harvesting operations, herbicide applications, reforestation efforts. So all of this is continually generating activity on the property and around the property with roads. In contrast, if we think about a solar operation, like was just described, after the construction period, it's a fairly passive land use. So I think the comparison of the two is important there as well. Those are all the thoughts I have, but again, I would like to express my opposition to the amendment changes. Thank you for the time tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Matthew Ellerfield. I'm one of the co-founders of Renewable Energy Services. I wasn't aware of the 3-minute time limit, so we prepared a slide deck, but we'll run through it real quickly because we don't have time to get through everything. And a few of the slides already touched on by Mr. Coleman and the commissioner previously. So just a little bit about the company. We're family owned and operated based in Pittsburgh, North Carolina, which has many of the same characteristics of Emporia. So we enjoy working here. We do have 2 active projects, utility scale planned for Greensville County. And we're here this evening to express our opposition to the proposed amendments. Touched on this previously, go through. Again, as was discussed, there are a wide variety of different types of solar projects, and they all have many different attributes. So one of our concerns with the proposed ordinance was just the feeling of grouping all of them in together, as there's a wide array of different possibilities, sizes, shapes, forms, designs that are possible between 1 megawatt and 100 megawatt. And we felt that was not recognized or addressed specifically with the maximum size or component of the amendment, as well as the 5-mile distance requirement. I'd like to specifically address the 5-mile distance requirement and some of the unintended consequences that could create. The first one would be it materially damages nearby property owners through no fault of their own, and specifically, the format didn't come through for whatever reason, but it would eliminate a significant economic opportunity both for the landowners themselves, but also for the county, which touched on by previous speakers. And with respect to the landowners, a lot of the folks that we speak to are looking for ways to keep land in the family, and this proposed change would take away that ability for many folks. It would unfairly reward first movers, whereas, again, speaking with many folks across the Commonwealth, many folks were hesitant to jump in early, and so they wanted to see the industry get more mature. And so, again, this would damage those folks who wanted to see a comprehensive ordinance that Greensville already has come into place before getting in. Again, it doesn't really address the future concerns because many larger projects have the ability to have significant buffers, undisturbed buffers in many cases, where they can be very, very hard to see from both public right-of-ways and from adjoining properties. And so it eliminates the ability for developers to use those methods. It eliminates the ability for the planning commission and the board of supervisors to use their discretion to see, okay, maybe one project is able to really shield itself. And then I guess I'll leave it there. But again, it's sort of.
Everybody, I'm walking where y'all finishing the notes and stuff, and I will get the rest of the notes too.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, my name is Mark Fronendahl, and I'm with the law firm Rolfe Jackson. I'm working with Urban Grid and Monarch Solar. We are studying a utility scale parcel in the northwest part of the county. You've already heard that we are largely supportive of a number of policy reasons that are behind your existing ordinance and some of the reasons that you're analyzing it. Again, the desire to locate utility scale projects in remote areas, and your general plan, your general strategy to cluster those in areas so they don't impact residences. The key again is to prevent the impact to residential homeowners here in the county. So I want to highlight just a little bit of background about me. I'm a former municipal administrator myself. And so I'm sort of looking through your proposals. I wanted to highlight a couple policy considerations that would be a good lens for you. You've already heard about the county revenue opportunities. The larger the property is, with fewer constraints, that means that you have a larger revenue opportunity that doesn't have the handcuffs that you get with proffers. Proffers have to have a nexus to the case, a legal nexus, whereas with the kind of revenues you get from solar, you don't have that restraint. So from a policy perspective, that's a very good opportunity for you. From a land use perspective, you have the opportunity, you heard a little bit about that tonight already, you have an opportunity to preserve very large rural tracts of land in a way that doesn't harm the environment. So family scale, estates scale, timber production scale, farm scale properties get to be preserved for the length of the lease or the length of the operation of the solar facility. Those are preserved whole, and so instead of the little chipping away that you get through subdivision of rural areas, you're preserving these rural areas into a long distance into the future in a way that does, again, generate significant revenue and doesn't have water quality impacts because there's no tilling, there's no running of stumps going on. There's only one construction period. And of course, large buffers are already provided for. We would ask that you carefully study the 5 mile, again, that will cause sprawl evenly across the county and away from your strategy that you've already adopted of concentrate. We also ask the 1 mile is a little difficult because you have some opportunities that are more than a mile from the transmission line that are far away from any residences.
I'm sorry.
So again, thank you for your comments, and we appreciate your time.
Good evening. My name is Benny Lincoln, and I reside in 3175 Pine Log Road. I guess I'm kind of like Ms. Wiley, in the sense I'm a little bit confused, thinking that the meeting tonight mostly was going to be to discuss the proposed changes to the comp plan by inserting the guidelines that this group, as well as the Board of Supervisors, adopted some year and a half ago. Actually, I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the recommendation of the planning board, planning staff, and recommend that the guidelines that were created a year and a half ago be inserted into the zoning ordinance. I think it benefit the people who live in this county by having those mandatory guidelines. It would definitely create a level playing field. That would create a more consistent environment for everyone who makes the application moving forward. But it would also limit the amount of discretionary decision making that we all struggle with the last 3 years. That's what divided the county, that's what divided families and neighbors. But for the first time, this would honestly provide some limited protection to county landowners. Because as I stand here tonight, there is none. I live in Hicks Ford District. Of the 5 solar projects, utility scale projects that were mentioned in the report, 4 of those are in Hicks Ford District. 2 of them are only 600 feet apart, and they're within half a mile of where I live. So the troops are rallying as we speak to control the density in the neighborhood in which we live. There's a reason we live out in the county. If you don't think the rural character has already been changed, I suggest you take a non-PG ride down Pine Log Road, down Fountain Creek Road, down Fish Road. And if you'd like to come to my home, I'll be happy to ride you out there. So I would strongly recommend that you adopt the recommendation of the planning staff and place the amendments into the zoning ordinance. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak on this, this matter?
Good evening. My name is Steve Coleman. I reside at 4007 Gracie Pond Road. I too am concerned about solar panels going up everywhere within the county. I do think that in the area where we actually live, that is secluded from everybody else, and we have the opportunity as a landowner to not only generate revenue from us, but for the county as well. I understand that the county adopted, not too long ago, getting paid $1,400 per megawatt, which is a substantial amount more than they're getting for any acre of timberland, acre of farmland, and the revenue source that would be generated would actually increase the coffers for Greensville County. The stipulations that you have put here, 5 miles. Greensville County has 297 square miles of area. That's 190,000 acres, roughly. You put a 5-mile radius on a solar site, 5 miles is a consumption of almost 50,000 acres. So when you do the math, 197,000 acres that's actually within the county, that doesn't give you an opportunity to put in many solar farms that are viable project. So with that, I strongly discourage adopting these recommendations in Article 24. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak? And that looks like it. We move to the next.
Yes, we'll, move to the next case, which was comp plan amendments. Just a second, we shall paperwork. As I mentioned in the last report, back in 2019, we put metrics in place in the comp plan to kind of direct where we wanted to see the solar projects located. As you're well aware, stuff that's in the comp plan is just subjective. A suggestion is not law like it is in the zoning ordinance. So if you were deciding you wish to take the comp plan and put it in ordinance just like we discussed in the previous case, this is the list. We would just be removing the deleting metric number 1, which is the total size. larger than 2 acres and less than 1,000 acres of no more than 75% DB coverage. Further than 1 mile from the village, town, city boundary, further than 1.5 miles from another existing grid solar facility, and within 1 mile of the electric transmission line. Those would be 4 items that staff would recommend if you wish to add to zoning ordinance to leave out of the comprehensive plan. When you look at the plan and issue strategy, you would need to change strategies, policy, distinct utility scale greater than 1 megawatt would be changed to about 5 megawatts may be acceptable in agricultural zone districts. And they were the only changes if you would take those metrics and put them in the comp plan into the zoning ordinance that you have to make. Discussed always basically in the last case, it's only text amendment case. So again, you have basically the same 3 options. You can approve, remove the language pertaining to utility scale solar for the comp plan, or you can make no changes at all to the comprehensive plan as it pertains to utility scale solar. Did you have any specific questions?
We're still in public session, I suppose if there's anybody else that wants to speak, they can speak now. There isn't. We've got a regular session.
Yeah, would anyone like to speak on the comp plan changes?
Mark Burnable with Ralph Jackson, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I just wanted to add a few comments I think that are generally positive and consistent with your policy goals. And I think really what we as a potential applicant studying significant property of utility scale in the county might recommend to you is that you do keep the opportunity for the thoughtfulness that a special use permit permits, in whatever language you select for the comprehensive plan. And that is really looking forward, protecting the residents and the other goals that you select first, and not necessarily get stuck on any sort of technical item that would prevent an application that meets your goals otherwise. In order to remote location. Something that even if it is more than a mile away from the transmission line, is something that will protect the viewshed of the county and be nowhere near places of residence. So whatever you do, I think that you would want your staff and the board to have that sort of flexibility so that the projects that will help the revenue of the county and also not infringe on the rights of citizens, especially residents. That would really be helpful, I think, in terms of the policies that you're working on tonight. Thank you.
Dave, let's on that next topic. Very briefly, we would just request that the comprehensive plan also allow that 1 to 5 megawatt opportunity there for a smaller scale opportunity. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on the proposed comp plan changes? If not, I guess then would we vote to go back into regular session? Can I get a motion, please?
So,
Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Okay, we're back in regular session. So what discussion do we have on the zoning ordinance changes?
Lynn, are you saying that what we are, I mean, I guess what we're already in a process of looking at our comp plan. I mean, you know, we're doing our review now. And so if this is coming up on Wednesday, I think the solar section is coming up on Wednesday, and we're going to address it then. And my feeling is that we should defer and hear what is being proposed on Wednesday, and then, you know, revisit this again later, because, you know, I do not agree with changing comp plan. I do not agree with changing the zoning ordinance. I may agree with, again, some clarity and definitions that we need to discuss, but I think we need to discuss this now that we've heard from the public and we hear what the Earth Group is going to say, that we need to take this under advisement. It's kind of a lot to digest in one night. That's my thought, is that we defer this. I don't think that we are prepared to make any significant changes tonight until we talk through this some more.
I would, and I'll say this, I thought that the study that you did on the solar was excellent. And it's really nice getting something from our staff and seeing our staff's position for change. I really did appreciate that. Two things I would like to kind of get your thought process on. And one is, I understand that the 5 mile spacing was sort of a placeholder. And so I was curious your thought process when you prepared the map of the 2.5 mile spacing.
That's just to give you an idea of what 2.5 looks like. We probably need to make it like 5 maps, because the maps get so cluttered. Maybe a map showing a mile and a half, 2, 3, whatever. So that map, I tried to illustrate what 5 miles was and the 2.5, which would be half of that. Areas you see highlighted in green, the areas along the power line infrastructure, if you had a 2.5 mile condition in place.
What was the thought process behind it being, you know, you suggesting 5 miles? Again, Greensville County is not a very large county, and if you're at the Brunswick line, 5 miles takes you to the city limits. So I'm not really sure why, you know, I don't understand what 5 miles means. Well, it's not arbitrary when it's a proposal. You should say, let's talk about the distance, and not if you pull 5 miles out of the sky, that's a little misleading. Because I agree that 5 miles is pretty, it's restricted. It's basically saying, well, we're not allowing solar.
I'm gonna say this, in past, we have had more people, more petitions of complaints about solar. And I'd like to say this, everybody that comes before this board to speak of, none of them live in the county, they live elsewhere. So I have to always bear in mind the voice of the citizens of Greensville County. That's what I would have to respect. And most of the voices, when I talk to people in Greenville County, they do not want to see a solar farm sitting there like that.
I don't want to see a solar farm sitting in anyone's backyard either, but solar developers wouldn't be coming to the county if landowners didn't give them permission to develop a project on their land. So the landowners are in essence speaking when a solar developer speaks, because we can't have a solar project unless the landowner gives permission.
But the landowners can speak.
I've only heard one landowner tonight not want it. I've heard one landowner tonight not want solar. That was Mr. Ligon. Everyone else that's been represented tonight has got Greensville County landowners on their side because they're wanting to develop projects, and they can't develop them unless the landowner agrees to it.
That's what we're sitting here. The landowners want to develop it.
Yes.
These people that are not landowners, that's resident in the city or in the county, they're the one that talking to me, and those are the ones that I'm listening to. I'm not listening to the landowners that want to put a solar farm. I'm looking at the residents that I represent in this county.
Well, I think, I agree with you if you're talking to residents in the county who don't want a solar farm in a residential area. I don't want a solar farm in a residential area. We've got residential zones, I guess not 4 or 5 residential zones in the county, and I don't think that we need to have solar in any of those. We only allow large scale solar at the moment in an agricultural zone, so that it is not close to a viable neighborhood. I most definitely agree with you. But I think when we put restrictions that are overly restrictive, we are trying to legislate a problem away. And it's really hard to legislate that because there are always exceptions to the rule. Because there's a project, that might check all the boxes and it really not be in the best location. And you may have another project that isn't in an ideal location where there are no homes for miles away, but it doesn't check all of your boxes. And so if the intent of your project is to be out of sight, out of mind, then I think that's why we need to have the ability to look at every project and to vote on every large-scale project, like we've been doing in the past. We voted up or we voted down based on its location, based on the parameters that we set as far as setback, as far as buffering and all that. But if a project is fit well and it's out of sight, and it doesn't affect a neighborhood or even 1 or 2 homes, it doesn't even affect those, then why shouldn't the project then be allowed? Again, there was some argument to be made in the past because the county really wasn't going to get that much revenue from a project, but now you pass a revenue share agreement, which is $1,400 a megawatt per year. It's not based on, on machinery and tools, which is depreciable, which it decreases in the future. This is, you can bank on your $1,400. So the bigger, your large scale projects, you're going to get a considerable amount of money from those. You're also going to get a considerable amount of money from the property tax on it, because your property taxes are going to significantly increase. Now your agricultural land is probably valued anywhere around, $1,000 to $1,200 an acre. I did some digging this past week and read some reports where property values on solar, it can be as much as anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 an acre because they're considered light industrial. So that also brings significant revenue to the county.
Lena, the other thing that I wanted to, if you could just elaborate a little bit on is, the way I read this, the smaller projects, 1 to 5 megawatts, would not even be allowed. What's your what is the thought process on that?
The concern of the board was that these 1 to 5 megawatt projects could go anywhere on a 3-phase system. Like I previously stated, we've had a look in the areas that are zoned residential, we've had a look in areas that are zoned industrial, commercial, as well as A1 areas.
But again, we don't allow those in residential.
They would have to come through.
They would have to be rezoned.
Text of them to rezone the property and everything, that's correct.
Right. And so, no, I can say right now that I would not be, we just had that project that came up back in December, that was on Country Club Road, and that is zoned residential. They wanted to put up a solar farm. We did not, we deferred it, but I wanted to deny it because it's zoned residential. It's zoned residential for a reason. That's an ideal location to build it's for homes, for a future subdivision. Doesn't need to have solar farm on that, in my opinion. So we can already see that process seems to be working by not allowing those in a residentially zoned area.
Can we overload some of these watersheds with too many of these?
As far as any sort of environmental impact on a river, I don't know of any. Again, I think that's what we're going to discuss on Wednesday.
I heard one guy say earlier that you could return farmland. I'm a peanut farmer.
Steve, speaking to your mind.
To your mind.
You know, I ain't forget that.
Craig Walker.
I'm a peanut farmer. If this one's dead.
No, speaking to it. Oh, okay.
I'm a peanut farmer, and he said you can return it, you cannot return it to peanut land because the zinc gets so high in the land that peanuts will not grow. So you gotta be careful with some of this stuff, because there's a lot of detrimental stuff in solar panels. They tell you, but I read a whole lot of stuff that we're not being told. So I'm kind of leery of a lot of things. And some of it we overload different watersheds throughout our county, but we got a small town, so you can get in trouble quick. Because when they're talking about the environmental impact on Nottaway, where we get our water from.
That's gonna be one of the discussions, in the joint work session coming up next week.
I think that, again, anything that I read, I think we read some studies from NC State, that refuted that there was any type of problem on the land with zinc. Again, I think you can find a study to say at the end of the day, whatever it is that you want the study to say, and I am by no means an expert on that, but some of these solar panels don't even go in concrete. They're just in the ground. Some do go in concrete. Some of these zinc posts are probably not any different than fence posts that we have, I don't know. I mean, it would be nice to see into the future, to see that in 30 years from now, we're gonna have a problem. But again, solar has been happening, not in Greensville County, obviously, but it's been happening in the United States and around the world much longer than it's been happening in the state of Virginia and in Greensville. There are projects in North Carolina that are almost, well over 20 years. I haven't heard of anything cataclysmic happening, so I tend to think that it's not.
Well, I encourage everybody to try and make the meeting next Wednesday night to talk about the environmental impacts of the solar developments. Liam, what can we do to not accept applications until we can act on this? do we have any other options? I mean, I think it's already been mentioned that we consider deferring it.
So you're saying, what can we do to stop any new applications until we go through
And do we have any
the
options?
process to divide the group
Yes, sir.
that we're going through? You could make a motion to remove utility scale solar from the zoning ordinance. Table 4.1 is a use allowed by special use project, and then revisit it, and you can always add everything back at a later date.
Well, why would we do that?
He was just asking me a question.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but when you do that, that's like saying, well, I'm gonna close the door to my business and I'm gonna not allow anybody to come in until I can decide, what kind of products I'm gonna, sell next week. I don't think that's good business. I think it's incumbent upon us to get this done. We have, again, all of us were on board in 2019, and this exact same thing happened where the board wanted to put a moratorium on it, and the citizens spoke, and it didn't happen, and we came up with this plan, and now all of a sudden, we have to revisit it. And again, what I'm hearing is that the board of supervisors said that we need to revisit this, but I don't really know why we need to revisit it. I haven't been really given a clear answer as to why the board of supervisors wants us to revisit it. I know that we're in the middle of our comp plan review, and we are about halfway through, and the comp plan is going to be finished in December. And we may discover some things on Wednesday night that we want to incorporate into the comp plan. And if so, we will. But I'm not really sure why we're talking about this. Again, we haven't even heard any solar cases in a year.
Is there any other discussion? Any of the other commission members have any comments? What are the wishes of the board, the planning commission?
My wish is to leave everything the way it is, currently written. Again, we're going to be discussing, the comp plan for the next 6 months. If something comes up, we decide that it needs to go into the comp plan at that time, we will visit it. What Steve was just alluding to, if there's an issue with watershed or if the group suggested that we put some language in there about that, well, we'll talk about that then. I don't know why we are revisiting all of this stuff. Again, we all talked about this in 2019. It's the exact same stuff.
Well, I'm not comfortable taking any action on this tonight.
I'm with you, I'm not even.
Well, if we defer this, then we are deferring it until the May meeting.
Yes.
That would be it. Okay, well, then let's defer to second Tuesday in May.
Is that a motion?
Well, I didn't make a motion, I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, if we're done discussion, I guess I can ask for a motion to ZTA-1-21.
Yeah, I move that we defer to the next meeting.
I second that.
Okay. Have a motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. One abstention. Were there any opposed? Okay, no opposition. Okay, so that issue will be deferred until the next planning commission meeting in May. Okay, the next item on the agenda was the comp plan changes. Is there any more discussion on that? If not, we'll have a motion on that.
Again, I move to define to the mail-out.
Have a second? Did we get a second?
Oh, okay, a second.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, likewise?
Abstain.
Have one abstention. Okay, good. All right, Dan, what's next? Any other matters?
That's all, I'm back there next Wednesday,
Next Wednesday night at
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Katrina has the packages for that.
I might be right there.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So,
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. See y'all Wednesday night.